Before I begin this video and essay address, and this is probably going to be a very brief one, I want to make sure that if you are not currently subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe button now. And even if you are subscribed, check to make sure that YouTube has not unsubscribed you. We always get people in the comments section pointing out, man, I got unsubscribed and didn't even know it. Yeah, this is part of how YouTube has carried out its undercover ban, its shadow ban of the black media. They're undermining us in whatever way they can to try to make it difficult for you to follow this black truth. So it's up to you to be responsible for staying connected to the power source. Now, that said, well, I hate to say I told you so. There were a lot of people for the last week who apparently thought that rappers were going to be fighting the war against white supremacy, and I'm sitting here thinking there is no precedent for this. These guys are entertainers, first, foremost, and only. I don't see Snoop Dogg ever getting out there waving the flag before. His momentary fit of pique passed pretty freaking fast. And now what's happened is just like with 50 Cent. Yes, and I said it. Just like with 50 Cent, your boy 50. Now you've had Snoop Dogg officially decide to tuck his tail between his legs and slink away. Now, I've been telling you for the last week in each of the videos that I did dealing with Gayle Skank, I've been telling you that while it was nice that Snoop actually had some words of rebuke for her, I told you we can't rest on that. And what was the reason that I gave you for why it was that we could not rest on Snoop Dogg's devotion to black empowerment? It's because we are not his source. I told you his loyalty is going to be whatever. When he breaks bad, it's going to be based on who he gets his money from. And that's precisely what happened. So while a lot of other people were getting all jolly in the behind, oh, look at Snoop. Snoop is doing that. I'm sitting here looking and going, this is a man who has not had any dealings with us. This is a man who has no track record to speak of for black empowerment. Yeah, he was sticking up for his friend's memory, for his acquaintance's memory, however the two are connected to each other. But I'm also looking and going, it ain't going to take long before his white PR people or his white manager, his white handlers, all they got to do is say, well, Snoop, you know, that gig on Martha Stewart that you got, buddy, that can disappear real fast if you don't get your mind right, buddy. And here we go. And by the way, ain't that the same thing with 50 Cent? 50 Cent wants to be a TV mogul. Well, what that means is you're going to have to stay on the good side of the very people who sent Gayle Skank to slander Kobe Bryant and by proxy to slander black people in general. You can either be on the side of black empowerment or you can be on the side of the white media. You cannot have both. And before I go calling myself patting any of these guys on the back, I'm going to look to see, does this man have a track record of sticking up on the side of the angels, or was this just some momentary thing? See, black people are very easily impressed. I guess we're just so starved for some sort of white media validation. We don't mind if we got the black media, but what we really want is one of these Negroes who the white media made prominent. We need one of those guys to say what we're saying before we believe that it has any validation. Let me tell you something. For a lot of you who have been on the outside for the longest time and who really don't know how these kind of things work, that's why you need the black media, and a lot of you who have been out there slamming your gums need to just be quiet. In every instance, the black media has been right. Too many of the people who have been calling themselves letting their Twitter fingers cut loose because they're little lead pipe babies with absolutely no impulse control, who have no critical thinking skills, and they will jump on any bandwagon that's right in front of them, usually the wrong one. These are the main people who want to argue. A lot of folk got mad as hell when I said that 50 Cent did not criticize Gayle Skank. And they were like, yeah, he did, brother. You need to take that back. Look at this video that he posted on Instagram. I'm like, fool, first of all, he didn't criticize Gayle Skank. It was just a broken snippet of a video without context. That's probably the reason why the white media didn't make any big deal out of it. And if the white media did make a big deal out of it, shouldn't that tell you something stupid? Oh, but these are the people who want to talk. This is why black people are so chronically misinformed and disinformed, because we got the dumbest people in the room being the first ones wanting to run their mouths. I was looking at what 50 Cent said publicly. when he put his face out there. And when he put his face out there, he started sounding like Mushmouth Moore. He started sounding like that clown. I don't understand. What's this meant to achieve? What's the point? I don't understand. Sounded just like Mushmouth. Well, that makes sense. Mushmouth and 50 Cent are NIMBY nominated producers. But that lets you know what was going on. He immediately started watering down his rhetoric. He started walking it back. See, he wasn't out there in public saying, Gayle, skank, you be, and this, all the rest of it. That made some of you idiots' hearts go pitter-pat. I'm looking to see, what does this man do when he puts his face on it, when he decides to get out there in public and make a public statement? What does he say? What he says is, I don't understand. What's it meant to prove? What's it about? Oh, I'm all behind the movement, though. I'm all behind the movement. Man, he's up here equivocating. He's talking out both sides of his neck. The only thing that he made very clear was that he was dialing back whatever he was saying before. It wasn't going to be no criticism. He didn't even say Gayle Skank's name. Wouldn't even say her name. See, the white media understands exactly when they're dealing with a black person who's ripe for a fall. Jason and I have been telling you for over a decade now, the white media does brain typing. They want to find out what kind of Negro they're dealing with, so they do brain typing to try to figure out, what kind of fool are you? Are you somebody who's going to be a good little cog in the white media machine? And even if you're somebody who has money, a lot of black folks think, well, the problem is money. If black people just had some money, they could speak their minds. Well, look what happened with Snoop Dogg, huh? Yeah, he spoke his mind until his white handlers let him know that, well, you're not going to have that white approval. And he showed exactly what it was that really mattered to him. It ain't the money, stupid. Not for these guys, it's not. Far as they're concerned, they want some things that money doesn't buy, and money doesn't buy white approval. And besides, you and I are looking for ways to free ourselves from white supremacy, to free ourselves from the white media, to free ourselves from any sort of white supremacist reprisal. These guys are looking to literally wrap their arms around white supremacy and around white supremacy's bootlicks, and sometimes around whatever white supremacist females they can get their hands on. That's what these guys are doing. Their circle is not the black media. Their circle is not black empowerment. Their circle is not black society. Their circle is usually a bunch of white PR people, white agents, white managers, white television executives, white exhibition venue owners, white record labels. That's what these guys deal with. That's their circle, and that's the circle they want to be in. That's the club that they see themselves being part of, and they don't want to be thrown out of the club. Well, Snoop Dogg needs to understand he's painted a target on his back with this little stunt. He thinks to himself that he's getting rid of the heat, and the truth of the matter is the only protection that any black person has is whether or not other black people are going to stand up for them. Are other black people going to be speaking on your behalf? That's the only real support and protection that you got. You're sitting here dealing with these people from outside the community. You got your white PR person, your white handlers, and you're thinking to yourself, they're going to look out for me. That's amazing. That's what these guys are thinking. Oh, I got to stay on their good side. For what? What good does it do you? Well, then again, we don't know what the personal finances of a lot of these fools are. I mean, it's no secret that when you start looking at their personal finances, what you find is many of these guys are broke. Many of these guys are on the edge of bankruptcy. So it's a matter of, well, I got to get out here and sell the soap, and I made massa unhappy. I better walk that back. They got to do that mess. And this is the reason why you cannot be depending on these black celebrities. Even if they seem to be saying the right thing for a moment, all it takes is the first one of their white handlers to show disapproval, and they immediately backtrack at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Before white supremacy selects any Negro to elevate, I mean, if white supremacy did not bring this guy down before now, what that means is they know him very well. They've been around him long enough where they got a freaking, forget about dossier, they got a library of dossiers on him. They know everything about him. What they know is Snoop Dogg's first priority is to make sure that he stays within the good graces of the white powers that be. That's his top priority. They knew that. Didn't take much to pull his card. White supremacy understands exactly what kind of Negro to pluck from obscurity and put a little change into the pocket of. They always find some Negro, some fool, who's only one butter biscuit away from being buck broken. And it don't matter how much of a good jive they talk. They may talk a good game, but the rubber meets the road when it comes time to actually stand up to white supremacy. It's like Jason Black always says. You want to find out what a black person really believes? Just put a white person in front of them. And if you want to find out what one of these bootlicks believes, put a disapproving white person in front of them and see how quickly they cave. See how quickly they equivocate. See how quickly they start walking back their prior stance. Yeah, because they understand that that white person has the ability to at least attempt to punish you, if not punish you outright. They have the ability to do something. These guys are like, well, I don't have a real sacrificial disposition. I'm not really somebody who's willing to give up some or even any of the perks. Well, I can't have them looking at me funny. Well, maybe they can't take everything away from me, but you know, I've suffered from chronic white approval anxiety, and I really need the white supremacists to pat me on the head and tell me how great I am. Or at the very least, I need them to be friendly toward me. I really need that. No, family, I know that this is a hard pill for a lot of you to swallow. When I criticized 50 Cent, and rightly so, you had a bunch of fools coming out the woodwork, and most of these clowns, their main argument was they like 50 Cent's music. And the other idiots talking about Snoop Dogg, well, they like Snoop Dogg's music. Really, isn't that something? You want to know why so many of our would-be revolutions and so many of our would-be revolts and so many of our would-be liberation movements tend to fizzle out and fall apart is because there's too many black people who are far more interested in whether or not they can get their dance on, whether or not they can get their groove on, than they are with whether or not they can get their power on. And when you tell them that the price of liberation is you're going to have to cut some of these musicians that you like so much loose, you're going to have to charge them to the game. Something as basic and simple and inconsequential as that, that's not even a sacrifice. And yet the first thing they say is, well, I can't do without no Snoop Dogg. Yeah, that's right. To hell with liberation, to hell with black empowerment, you got to hear 187 on an undercover cop again. That is amazing. Because I can tell you right now, the white supremacists, that's one of the things they got their heads on straight about. They don't give a damn how long they've been listening to some musician. All it took was the Dixie Chicks to simply say that George Bush made them ashamed to be from Texas, and they said, burn them. Your careers are over. They don't put anything higher on their totem pole of values than their power. And as far as music goes, they're like, hell, I can find new music every day of the week. I'll find some new music to tap my foot to. My power comes first. Gee, I guess that's why the white supremacists are in power, and we're damn sure not. Too many of us have the wrong priorities. We got to be very careful who we choose to be our spokespeople. First thing you're supposed to be doing is checking out the track record of anybody who calls themselves speaking for you. And the reason why is your very first question should be, what are the chances that this person's going to break bad on us? I mean, for God's sake, have we not had enough white supremacist sock puppets, enough of these bootlick Negroes, these boule wannabes? Have we not had enough black sock puppets for white supremacy to have learned the scam yet? They show up and for about half a second they talk a good game, mainly so they can get you to say, yeah, brother, yeah. And then next thing you know, they immediately veer to a straight white supremacist line. Have we not seen this enough times from these pork chop preachers? And from these pathetic politicians? And from these phony baloney make-believe activists like D. Ray McKesson and others, and Tarana Burke and a whole bunch of other fools? They get out there and try to talk like they're one of us, and then they immediately swerve to a white supremacist line. This was the lesson of a dunce, but apparently too many black folks slept through that particular lesson. And instead of us taking the hard line, you would think that we would know by now that black celebrities are to, at best, now I'm talking about for the ones who actually have shown something resembling consistency, they should still be seen through a lens of total and complete skepticism. We are supposed to have a healthy sense of doubt when it comes to even the ones who we would believe, well, at the very least, they haven't broken bad on us. They've gone more than 5 minutes without backtracking. That doesn't matter. How did this person come to your attention in the first place is what you should be asking. Who presented you to me? How did Snoop Dogg come to my attention? The same way that Gayle Skank came to your attention because the white media put Calvin Brodus on television with music videos so you could see him, giving the guy TV shows, whether it was on MTV or VH1. Here he is every time I look up, and especially with freaking MTV. As bigoted as Kurt Loder is. But you're now learning that the same way that Dr. Dre wasn't no good, well, seems like birds of a feather flock together. I don't give a damn if you have a momentary bout of indignation because of the most obvious slander in the world. It takes no brains to say that Gayle Skank was wrong. It takes no brains to understand that she was wrong. Even the white media couldn't defend her. But what they were waiting for was for Snoop Dogg to go ahead and show that he was more desirous to maintain the goodwill of the white media than he was to actually stand for black truth. And that's the problem. See, when it comes to the new voices of black media, particularly Jason, Tariq, and I, what you find is there's none of this backtracking going on. There is no disapproval that comes from white supremacy that makes any of us say, "Oh, well, I don't." Well, I could have handled that differently. No. If I call you out, it's because you did wrong. And if I denounce you, and if I call you on the carpet, then I'm going to stand on it. That's because I have what's called principles, and those principles are not going to change depending on who's standing in front of me. It's not going to change depending on who's showing me disapproval. See, I can tell you right now, if it was some black folks showing disapproval to Calvin Brodus, he would not have backtracked on anything. He wouldn't have retracted a word. But it's the white powers that be who he's still hoping to get a little change from, and here we go. Now, here's the thing. If you're not going to actually stand on what you say, and if you're going to fold like hot laundry the moment that the white media starts looking at you and going, guess we gave a TV show to the wrong nigger, you know full well if you got a spine made out of tempered steel or a spine made out of Jell-O. You know that before you even open your mouth. And what Calvin Brodus has done with this stunt is he has now emboldened the white supremacists, because now instead of them having to try to claim that, oh, well, we better hurry up and declare victory and get the hell out of here. Instead, now they're crowing, and all of a sudden they discovered their little courage. They didn't discover the little bit of nerve. Oh, they're plastering this everywhere. It's like, yeah, the guy who was basically the symbol of kicking Gayle Skank around, well, he went ahead and walked that one back. He went ahead and apologized for it. So we can now say, see, she was right. Even he understood she was right. Now, he didn't say that she was right. He just simply said, well, I could have handled that differently. But the white media, because he did that, they can now run with that and say, see, he understood that there was nothing out of bounds about it. He knew that he was wrong. He knew that this was the right time to ask it. And he understands. See, he gets it. And that's how they're going to be running with it. And now they're going to be doing this a lot more. Snoop Dogg, Calvin Brodus, the spineless jellyfish, that scumbag, and I said it, he has now given the green light to the white media to really go in, and they're going to continue doing this. They are now emboldened. And then again, why not? This is the problem with black celebrities. This is the reason why we cannot show them any regard. This is the reason why I had to try to show some political maturity for some of you out there who have no business running your mouths. You have no business commenting. You're not smart enough. You're not savvy enough. You're not observant enough. And you haven't got the foresight that God gave a dung beetle. So when it comes to this serious talk here about empowerment versus enslavement, you don't get to talk. You are not going to be taking any of your cues from these black celebrities. They are to be taking their cues from us. Why? Calvin Brodus just showed you, and you shouldn't even need a reminder. If you have any sense at all, you should know that the black media always steers you right, that when it comes to speaking for our people, you do not go to the Hollywood Hills. You don't go to a recording studio. You don't go to a TV soundstage or set. You come to the black media. You don't look for whoever the white media has put in front of you because that's the easiest thing for you to find. And that's what too many black folks are like. The white media has an enormous amount of reach, an enormous amount of scope. They have the ability to make it where if they want you to see something, you will see it because it's going to be impossible to get away from it. And too many black folks, they trust the white media. They'll claim that they don't, but you can tell that they do because when the white media puts something in front of them, they go right for it, hook, line, and sinker. They show absolutely no skepticism. They show absolutely no doubt. Not an iota of circumspection takes place. They just go right along with it. Oh, Snoop Dogg is, oh, look what he's saying about Gayle Skank. Oh, see, Snoop Dogg. I'm sitting here going, nah, nah, nah. That's easy for him to do that. A, let's see if he stands on it. He won't. And B, look at who the hell he gets his money from. That tells you everything. He has not cut ties with VH1. He has not cut ties with any of these white media powers that he's been rubbing up against. He hasn't cut ties with them. So what that means is he still wants something from them, and they can see that. I've been telling you ever since last Thursday that you need to be very, very wary and do not be resting on Calvin Broadus being some sort of spokesperson. We were not the ones who presented him to you. The white media presented him to you. But too many black people, they have lived their entire lives basically listening to, raised on a steady diet of rap music and R&B and sports. So that being the case, they desperately, pathetically want for these black celebrities to actually stand on principle for black people. And what happens is when they don't, you're the first idiots who make excuses for them. You're the first ones who'll get out there and say, don't you be talking about no 50 Cent, man. You wrong, man. A dumb, gullible jackass like these clowns who I saw in my comment section, these morons, these freaking lead paint babies who have been eating paste since they were in diapers. These brain dead bastards ain't taking us anywhere. You did not have to wait for Calvin Broadus to break bad on you. The simple fact of the matter is you shouldn't have been looking to him in the first place. Yeah, but the problem is you want to actually believe that some of them songs that he said actually reflected his principles when the truth is he's portraying a character. You see what Calvin Broadus actually believes. What's that old saying? Adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. Now, he had all the support in the world from the black grassroots. That should have been enough for anyone. But the thing is, that ain't what Calvin Broadus wants. He doesn't want support from the black grassroots. As far as he's concerned, his job is to make himself as saleable as possible. And well, the path of least resistance on that front is to just go along with the white media's machine. After all, I mean, how can you make it through the day without hugging up on a nearly 70-year-old white woman? This goofy stuff that he's been doing, that's your first freaking sign that this guy, as far as he's concerned, he's doing car commercials with Lee Iacocca 10 years ago, and now he's running around doing a cooking show with Martha Stewart. I guess in his world, he's telling himself that this is smart. And I suppose if you're trying to be the best little white media prostitute you can be, yeah, I get, okay, fine then. They're offering a paycheck, and this is what the paycheck is for. But the problem with Snoop Dogg's paycheck is he decided to sell his people up the river. He has given the green light to the aggressors. And you better believe that when the white media comes out next time, there's going to be even more vitriol. It's going to be more obscene. It's going to be more egregious what they do next. And that will fall on Calvin Broadus's head as much as it falls on the white media's. And all of these clowns out there who are playing the back, hanging back in the shadows, trying to see how things shake out, they're going to look at this and instead of seeing an example of, well, you know what? If we take the heat, the grassroots will be with us and we should stand on it. Instead, now they'll have yet another excuse for why they ain't got to stand on nothing. Not that they were going to in the first place. But what'll happen is instead of having just Calvin Broadus and Game and these other West Coast sellouts, instead of having them deciding that they were going to carry water for white supremacy and carry water for attacks on black people. See how quickly that crap happened? It's all these Negroes who the white media puts on, whether it's Ta-Nehisi Chokes, or whether it's Calvin Broadus, or whether it's Mark Lamont, you big dummy Hill, or whether it's Michael Eric Doofus. Here they are coming out of the woodwork at every stripe, pattern, and spot. If it's somebody who the white media put on, they're carrying the water for the bad guys. Family, you didn't need to wait for this to happen to understand that putting your chips on Calvin Broadus was a bad bet. You didn't have to wait this long. Those of you who actually want black empowerment, you will learn that the black media steers you right. And the rest of you who are trying to find a comfortable place under white supremacy, and as far as you're concerned, there is no amount of evidence that will ever make you let go of white supremacy's black mouthpieces. Oh, as long as somebody has a song with a catchy beat, that's all it takes for them to have your eternal allegiance. You deserve to stay on the plantation. You and the rest of the doggone house Negroes belong together. Just understand, Massa has lost his patience for the house Negroes, and he ain't going to be putting you in the field. He's just going to be putting you out of his misery. Jason Black has often said you can't trust these old niggas. But what also needs to be said is, if you take a look at Calvin Broadus and take a look at Michael Eric Doofus and others, these guys are not elderly, but they damn sure ain't young. Hell, the definition of an old nigga has gotten to be anyone over 30 at this point. Because you got a lot of these clowns, as far as they're concerned, why shouldn't they sell out? They don't owe the black community anything. And you know what? We ought to go in with the presupposition that any of these fools are not to be trusted until they prove otherwise. Once you've been dancing with the devil, once you've gotten your daily bread from the white media, I gotta keep you at arm's length. Now, you can't be over here with what we're doing. It's very nice what you said a minute ago, but I'm taking it at face value, and it will go no farther than the few seconds or the couple of puffs of breath that it took you to say it. You don't get to say that you're on the side of the angels just because you spoke the truth, the undeniable truth, for a few moments. That doesn't get you any sort of points in my book. Establishing a clear track record does. Now, Snoop Dogg is not a black empowerment anything. That's fine. He's not an activist. He's not on a war path for black empowerment. Fine, but he shouldn't have said anything. Because that's what's happening here. Now, a lot of you in my comments, and some of you have YouTube channels and Twitter feeds, you'll be talking about how, oh yeah, we in a war, all right. We in a war. Sure can't tell by looking at how you guys reacted to 50 Cent carrying water for a man who ain't never done a damn thing for you. And you got Jolly in the behind because Calvin Broadus decided that he was going to do a diss track on Gayle Skank, and this man has no track record of ever standing on that. Yes, we are in the middle of a war, whether you want to face up to that or not. And if your Snoop Dogg music collection matters more to you than victory, then stay the hell away from me. We guaranteed lose keeping clowns like you around, the ones who are more interested in a song with a catchy beat than you are in actually getting your power. You're not going to take us anywhere, just like Calvin Broadus won't. This is a war. And because of the fact that I looked at Calvin Broadus and I'm like, dude, I don't know what your resume is, but I do know that you ain't been over here with us. I looked at him from the get-go and it's like, I'm sorry, but what you said doesn't matter much. Sorry, but that don't get you too much credit in my book. Because we are in a war. And for those of you who actually for a hot second fell for Calvin Broadus's little song and dance, well, the slow coasts, the half-wits, the ones who belong at the back of the bus, the short bus, what you just realized, well, some of you realize, but most of you are going to be in denial about it. In this war against white supremacy, Calvin Broadus defected.